Thanks for joining, those people that have joined us at this stage. I believe we have quite a few more people that have signed up, so hopefully that'll join us in the next hour or so. So I'd like to welcome everybody and just start by saying, firstly, a little bit of Ubuntu update. There seems to be a bit of confusion about my relationship with the Ubuntu movement and my so-called resignation and so forth. So let me just clarify things. I have not resigned or abandoned the Ubuntu movement. That's impossible. It's something that I gave birth to. It's something that I developed and evolved over a 13-year period now, since 2005. It's something that is inextricably connected to my essence, my heart, my soul, my DNA. There's no way I can ever walk away from that. It's just purely a matter of me not being able to fulfill a role of administrator or try and manage the different countries and the national coordinators in the different countries. That became not just a full-time job, a full-time job for probably 3 or 4 people. Unfortunately, I was handling that alone with my partner, Emma, and it just became an overwhelming task. So I simply could no longer do that. Also because the funding was just not sufficient for me to do that and still survive and carry on living a normal life and do more research and travel and so forth. So I literally just had to remove myself from responding to emails, which was taking up to 4 or 5 hours of my day every day, plus Emma's time as well. So I'm actually now probably busier than I've ever been before with behind the scenes activity, which is really the critical work right now that we're doing. We have had a very exciting new development in South Africa with implementing the One Small Town model with a slightly different strategy, because we have been given the open door by various departments in South Africa to implement an alternative electricity device, or supply of electricity, should I say. And we are now at an advanced stage, talking to the South African Department of Energy, also Eskom, the national energy provider, to use the grid to distribute the electricity, because for those that have been following in news from South Africa, there's a lot of pressure and trouble coming down the line for Eskom, the national power electricity provider. They've been dropping the ball and things are not going well at the moment. So my partner in this in South Africa, who's a black activist, been an activist for many years in South Africa, many years, well-connected, well-known. He has managed to raise funding for this implementation of this alternative electricity. It has been difficult. Let me not say it's been easy, but at the same time, it is very exciting as we are really knocking on the door of delivering new alternative electricity and using South Africa as possibly the first country in the world that will have this new supply of electricity. We were going to launch with a very large project of 1.2 gigawatts, which is just insanely large, as you can imagine. That has now been changed to start with a small pilot project of 1 megawatt. Everyone involved is quite relieved because that is far more achievable and deliverable, and then multiplying that to a few thousand of those smaller units. So that is a huge job and a task that I'm fulfilling at this stage in any case. And it's still keeping me really busy with Ubuntu and One Small Town activity. So I'd like to urge those that are still obviously passionate about the Ubuntu philosophy and One Small Town to please go on and continue making donations to the movement, because I need as much fund. I actually need more funding now than I've ever needed before, because this takes time, energy, and takes me away from my day-to-day work and earning a living. And trust that it will work out in perfect divine timing and solution, as things generally do. I put our faith in divine timing, and I believe that we're being led by higher source, by higher energetic guidance and higher levels of consciousness, and we just have to follow the path and the river and flow with the water, go with the flow. Things are going really well right now, and I don't want to mess it up. And so any bit of funding towards the Ubuntu movement at this stage will be great. That said, I have also escalated my activity in the research, the Stone Circle research regarding the fossils. And that's really what this webinar online workshop is all about, to talk about the latest discoveries and the breakthrough research in the Stone Circle, the measurements of the frequencies, also the fossils that have literally taken over this research and really pushed this research after 11 years of studying the Stone Circles. Now suddenly we're entering a new era of discovery and research, which is now, the focus is now going towards the fossils, the evidence of a giant flood, huge amounts of mud that covered entire mountains and a very, very large area of southern Africa. I've just been to Zimbabwe, all the way north to northern Zimbabwe, to Harare, with our Sacred Sites tour with Dean Laprini. We've literally come back yesterday from this tour. So I'm actually exhausted and looking forward to being able to take 1 or 2 days off before I take another small group on a small Sacred Sites adventure through Southern Africa. So this being said, also I'd like to remind you that you can book a small tour with me. Just go online or email me, or email Melissa at michaeltellingertours@gmail.com. Melissa runs the Stone Circle office, where we run everything from where the museum is and where we have our little lodge for people that come and visit us. And everything is run and managed from there, and also my home office where I'm speaking to you from now, right now. So what have we got Stone Circle-wise? Let's just recap on the Stone Circle research. So keep in mind that in 2007, when I first was privileged to see this vast amount of Stone Circles and these ancient ruins from a helicopter, when Jan Heine first started to work with me, or I started working with him, and he started sharing with me the many aerial photographs, and I was privileged to take a couple of helicopter flips with him in his company's helicopter at that time. And that completely changed my perspective and perception on what's going on here in Southern Africa. And I realized that we're dealing with a much bigger picture and a deeply hidden history of humanity that nobody could have ever imagined. And since then, things have changed dramatically. By the time I started looking at these aerial images and the photographs, and when I moved to Watervalboven, where I'm located now, I have been since 2008, early 2008, I had no idea how things will unfold, obviously. At that stage, very little was known about the Stone Circles. Keep in mind that today we talk about it as if it's a given, as if it's granted, that everyone's known about it for all these years and so forth. And that is not true. Even 10 years ago, nobody knew about it. There was no information about it. There were no photographs. Nothing was available. No information was available. And pretty much all the information available about it, right, about the stone ruins and these vanished civilizations of Southern Africa, have come from my research over the last decade, since 2008 or late 2007 until this very moment right now. And even as we sit here, as we speak, I was busy compiling some photographs and videos from the last tour with brand new research, brand new mind-blowing breakthroughs that are connected to all the things that I've been talking about for all these years. And these subjects are some of the most important considerations in all of human history, because they include vanished civilizations at the southern tip of Africa, where the so-called cradle of humanity or cradle of humankind is located. And it seems the more I work on this, the more research, the more breakthrough discoveries we make, the more real that true cradle of humanity is becoming. Now that I've been through on another Sacred Sites adventure tour or Dean Laprini, and we try and go to new sites all the time. We visited brand new sites in Great Zimbabwe. We visited some new sites in South Africa, new stone circles, new areas around Adam's Calendar, because there is so much unexplored area, so many unexplored sites. This could pretty much give every archaeologist a job tomorrow morning. We could employ every archaeologist alive in the world today and give them a job, because this area of exploration is simply so vast. And then we went up to Great Zimbabwe once again, and there we explored previously unvisited sites and incredible places with giant boulders and rocks that have clearly been placed. And further north to Harare, we unfortunately did not stop in the Nyanga province in the town of Mutare, and further north from there in the eastern highlands of Zimbabwe, where the true concentration of ancient stone structures and terraces are. But we did make it all the way to Harare, Zimbabwe, to what's known as the Giant's Playground, which is just a spectacular compilation of placed rocks, giant boulders that have been placed, perfectly meticulously placed and balanced. They refer to the Giant's Playground and the balancing rocks of near Harare, Zimbabwe, the capital of Zimbabwe. Absolutely mind-boggling, jaw-dropping stuff that is connected to giant activity. So we have the origins of humankind. We have a vanished civilization that left behind more than 10 million circular stone structures with the terraces and the channels that connect all these stone circles. We have the measurements of the energies, the magnetic fields, the sound frequencies, the electromagnetic fields, and other anomalies around it. We now have the discovery of the fossils, which, as I mentioned, has pretty much taken us in a whole new direction. And these fossils are not just little odd, arbitrary, one fossil here, one fossil there. We are literally talking about mountains, entire mountains, and hundreds of kilometers, all the way from where I am to Harare, Zimbabwe. I've been picking up and identifying fossils. That is 1,000 miles, people. So this is not something that's just a small area. Evidence of huge sediments of mud that have been covering these beings, these creatures that then fossilized, and then have been obviously hidden by the mud for who knows how long since that event happened. And we need to talk about that, because that is obviously evidence of a giant flood that happened at some stage, whether it's a few thousand years ago to many thousands of years ago, or several such events. And these fossils range from smaller creatures and body parts of smaller creatures and humanoids, hearts, ribs, lungs, jawbones, skin, femurs and leg bones, to much larger pieces of these giants, some of them that indicates giants of well over 100 meters tall, and then obviously the giant heart that is located near the giant footprint that just blows my mind. And if it is indeed a heart, that will be a heart of probably a 200-meter giant. And that is still small, as we know from the history books and the Bible and many ancient texts that talk about the giants on earth. So from the book of Enoch, we know that the giants were 3,000 ells tall. 3,000 ells would be about 1.5 kilometers. So even the bones and the fragments that we are picking up right now of what we believe to be very large beings of 100, maybe 200 or even 500 meters tall, they are still not nearly as big as what is most likely the really large giants that once inhabited the earth that are about a mile high. And this is very rapidly, or has very rapidly become a reality that I face every day. And I no longer marvel at it. I'm no longer surprised at it. I'm no longer freaked out by it. I just accept it and realize that we have to follow the clues and the evidence. And keep reminding myself that we have to be as scientific and as methodical about this as we possibly can, with very little funding, very little technologies to support what it is that we do, and really begging and borrowing, begging, stealing, and borrowing technology and help and support where I can, and hopefully finding new sources of support for my new channel that'll be a main stream of funding for this ongoing research. I believe that the discovery of the fossils here in South Africa and Zimbabwe and surrounding areas is possibly the largest breakthrough discovery in archaeology in the last 100 years, or possibly even more, because it's no longer I think, or we believe it is, or it looks like we now have physical evidence sitting in my museum. So the exciting thing is that I was doing some research and I found that there is new technology that can scan these mud fossils and show internal structure, very dense stone that is completely metamorphosized. And I also need to explain what I mean by that, because very few people really understand what this process is and how it works and what happens and how quickly can a fossil be created. And most of us, and so, which includes me, were incorrectly informed and under the incorrect assumption that fossils take millions of years, or at least thousands of years, or at least 12,000 years or so to become fossilized or become fossils. Well, that is a completely incorrect assumption or a belief. Fossils can be created within, not only within days, but literally within hours. And this is a huge breakthrough bit of research. And in the fossilization process, there are various types of fossils that you get. All depends on the conditions in which the body finds itself when it's trapped in mud, water, and all the minerals and the elements in the mud and the water around the body, whether it's an entire body or an organ, a body part. And that itself raises another very important question, is how is it possible that we're finding separate body parts, organs, internal organs like hearts and ribs and lungs and kidneys and so forth, and fingers and teeth and pieces of skin, and like animals are busy eating each other, or beings or creatures or eating other creatures. This is all in my museum. It's all there to be seen. It's literally as if this flash flood happened and just buried everything while this activity was going on. I've had some theories and philosophies on why specifically hearts, and this has been a big puzzle, because it seems to me that the heart is one of the most common organs that I've been collecting. I'm going to try and go through some of these pictures with you, but before I open that screen, let me just finish explaining about the fossilization process. So the fossilization process can happen a lot quicker than imagined. And I've recently discovered the new technology that they call proton scanning, where they actually send protons into the fossil, and it can, and because the protons can penetrate a lot deeper and very, very accurately. This is what they say. You know, my understanding, if you've watched my presentations, you'll know that I have a slightly different opinion on that, but that's how they explain it. I would explain it slightly differently what they actually do, but they explain it that is done with protons. And they get very, very accurate and beautiful internal structures of previously invisible internal organs or structure of fossils. So I'm very fortunate that one of these laboratories is actually situated right here in South Africa, in Pretoria. So I called up the laboratory. Unfortunately, their proton technology device is being serviced, and it's only going to resume its activity in about a year, or just more than a year, while it's being serviced and upgraded. But they have invited me to deliver to them a few samples, smaller samples, that they can scan with a very powerful normal X-ray machines, whatever technology they use with those specific machines, that can also still penetrate and show some internal organs, not nearly as clearly as that new proton scanning technology. But this is really exciting. So the day after tomorrow, I'll be taking a few of the smaller samples to Pretoria, to this research institute with this very advanced technology, and they're going to scan some of these fossils from my museum. So I'm very excited about this, obviously. This is, I think, as far as I know, it's only going to cost me about 3,000 Rand, which is probably about $200, which is really cheap at this stage. So that's something I can sort of afford on my own, but that's sort of where the limit ends. So when you see me begging for funding for Stone Circle Museum and the ongoing research, please go online and sign up and make a regular donation, or sign up to my new channel that I'll be launching very, very soon, literally within hopefully this week, with a new 20 to 30-minute episode every week of visiting various sites and showing you, taking you on a journey of discovery throughout some of the most mysterious places on earth here in Southern Africa, which includes South Africa, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Botswana, and many other of the Southern African countries that are connected to this vanished civilization from ancient times. So I'd like to invite, welcome everybody that's online. Lavina from Holland, Nicole, anonymous attendee, okay, Annette Kennedy, and the others that are online with us. Thank you for signing up and joining us. Please post your questions if you have them. Incomplete tourist stone. Okay, I'll go through the questions in a second. Are you open to collaboration with other movements or with non-profit organization? Oh, that's from Nicole Aki. Of course, I'm open to collaboration. Keep in mind that the reason I really can't do too much is it's purely a funding thing. So unless there's funding for me to take time off and go and meet people, because this has been the ongoing problem. That's why I had to stop answering Ubuntu emails and stop communicating with people, because every day I had to communicate with 200 or more people around the world with sometimes very silly questions that they could get off the website and so forth. So I literally just had to give up on that. So I'll continue putting little videos and motivations on the Ubuntu website from time to time, but I'll be spending most of my energy and focus on the Stone Circle research, the fossils, and my new channel, which is information that needs to get to the world. The Ubuntu movement is reached a point where our plan of action and the one small town, which is the plan of action, is pretty much evolved and fully formed. The philosophy is there, the little video is there, the manifesto is written out, the bullet point by point implementation is there, and there are already conscious investors and some conscious millionaires that have started showing interest in this and are making sounds that they see the one small town strategy as the future of investment, because it is a safe place to put your money in the future into the one small town. That is very exciting. So what will happen there, as I've been saying all these years, that the tools of enslavement will ultimately become the tools of liberation. And that's a beautiful poetic justice story that I think will be spoken about in years to come. How money became the thing that created a platform in which money is no longer needed. And that's just a beautiful story that I'm very, very excited about. So back to Stone Circles, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit, and you can just see how interconnected this is. You can't separate the one from the other, because it was my research into ancient civilizations that led me to the discovery of the gold, the obsession with gold, the origins of money, the Anunnaki, the Anunna gods, the Sumerian texts, the connection that we read in the Sumerian texts of the Anunna gods and the Anunnaki, their obsession with gold, the mining of the gold here in Southern Africa, which I believe is what they refer to as the Abzu. There's still some gray areas there, but here we have irrefutable evidence of ancient gold mines, thousands of ancient gold mines, some of the richest gold mines, and still the richest gold deposits in the world today are found in South Africa. Keep that in mind. We no longer are the largest producer of gold, but the richest gold deposits are still in South Africa. So this is where Enki came to mine the gold, the Anunna or the Anunnaki supreme commander. He came to Southern Africa to mine the gold, and this is why there's so much mysterious activity here. However, the stone circles, I believe, could come from a whole new era. So I constantly have to keep my mind open about what this means. What were the stone circles originally for? Who actually built them? Was it the Anunnaki that built them? Or was it somebody before the Anunnaki? Did the Anunnaki just come and use that technology because they understood it? Now we have the mysterious disappearance of the stone circles. And it seems that it was this flood, this sudden appearance or arrival of large amounts of flood, of water and mud and sand, because we find all of these elements, mud and sand covering these mountains, that then probably destroyed this vast civilization of more than 10 million of these structures. And then thousands of years of rain would have then exposed some of these, and then they were reused. The biggest mystery for me, and this is a real mind bender, people, and this is why I constantly have to keep my mind and my opinions open, and do, as I said, follow the clues and the evidence like the guys in CSI, because this is the information here daily changes almost on a daily basis. So what I am excited about is that I've basically stopped collecting fossils. There are just too many of them. They're just covered, the mountains are covered with them. And I've got some of the greatest and most beautiful and spectacular examples in the Stone Circle Museum, at the Stone Circle Lodge and Museum offices here right by at the river, the Elands River, between the mountains in Watervalboef in South Africa. So I'm jumping around a bit. There's just so much to cover. And let me carry on with these questions. Anonymous, many years ago, to answer open to collaboration is absolutely I will, however, be focusing on the research and delivering new chapters and new episodes to my new channel that'll be available on michaeltellinger.com very soon. So I urge you to please go sign up to that to help support and fund the ongoing preservation, research, and the building and the completion of the Stone Circle Museum with all these incredible tools and artifacts. Many years ago, I found a tourist stone near Gordons Bay, South Africa, and it had a shallow hole, but a piece had chipped off near the hole, so it had to be thrown away. Have you ever seen this? Yes, I have several. I have a lovely collection of tourist stones in my museum now. And you can see where they have been abused and used by different people over extended periods of time, and it's really interesting to see how they've survived, and even in their state of or bad state of disrepair, they are still incredibly powerful. They give off incredibly powerful energy fields, sound frequencies, electromagnetic fields, and every time somebody comes into the museum, they marvel at what it does to the compass and to the various magnetic meters and the EM frequency meters that you can download as an app on your cell phone and so forth. So, and you obviously know about the story about the tourist stone that crashed the TSA security system at Doha International Airport. So keep in mind that the fossils, like I've mentioned, the fossils of the creatures, some of them are very reptilian. And I think maybe I should actually just open the file that I created for this meeting and just go through them. Screen share. So screen share screen. Branson, can you see my screen share at the moment?
Yeah, you're good.
Can you see that? Okay, so let me move that out the way. And here you can see a whole array of images that I've put together for this presentation. So let's start with the tourist stones. That's if my computer will actually allow me. I think it is, this poor laptop is so full now that it's literally got hardly any memory left. And it's a brand new laptop, so I have to figure out a new way of actually doing my work, because within a month or two of getting a new laptop, the thing is bloody full and can hardly manage all the content. So Okay. So this is the Taurus stone that was the one that crashed the TSA security system. We're actually busy making a replica of it now. And I guess stonemason artists, carvers, creative people in South Africa that was responsible for doing all the incredible artwork at the Palace of the Lost City and at Sun City in the Pilanesberg in South Africa, which is in itself built on a very ancient sacred site. In fact, they have stone circles surrounding the Palace of the Lost City. There's a vanished civilization right around them. And I'm not sure if they did it consciously or purposely or knowingly, or if that was just an accident. So I'm going to just carry on here. This is a photograph that we took of a Taurus stone some time ago. It was actually taken by a friend of mine here. So I only have this one photograph because we managed to do this once and try to replicate it again, and we have not been able to do that. But once is good enough. And you can see thousands of tiny bubbles. This stone is in a bucket of water, and thousands of tiny bubbles that are formed and are spiraling and moving into the hole, into the central hole of the Taurus stone. So the water is actually indicating to us the toroidal field and the vortex fields, and as what some call torsion fields. So keep in mind that vortex fields, toroidal fields, and torsion fields are really all the same thing. And on top of that, for those that are not aware of this, these Taurus stones are actually generators and creators and emitters of scalar energy, sometimes called scalar waves. Scalar waves is actually probably the wrong word, because it doesn't really, scalar energy doesn't move in waves like we have the normal longitudinal waves that we've measured and work with normal transmission. This is a whole new way of looking at the transmission of energy because it's scalar. Scalar is possibly also an inadequate description, but the brilliant German physicist Dr. Konstantin Mail is possibly the world leading authority on scalar energy and the transmission of scalar energy. He developed a very simple little device that he sells online. There he shows how the scalar energy actually moves way beyond the speed of light. And so this is really important information. So this is just on the Taurus stones as some of the key key tools that I have and advanced technology created by these ancients. I'm going to come to the questions in a while. So as I'm going through these pictures, please formulate your questions and write them down, these pictures. Let me just go back here. This is just a photograph of, let me turn, oh yeah, no, it is. This is just a photograph of one of the best finds of fossils. So you can see the crocodile tail. You can see the cursor. You can see the tail of the reptile, crocodile. That is possibly about 2.5 feet from left to right. You can see the right leg over there. And then on some images, you can actually see the other leg here. So this is the back of a crocodile or a small crocodile or a reptile that looks like a crocodile that is actually in this whole rock. What you're looking there is a whole rock. Let me go back. That has got this body of this reptile in it. And this is right up among the stone circles, actually not far from where I found some phallus stones, and also where the heart was found, one of the most precious tools and artifacts I have in the museum, that beautiful fossilized heart that I'll show you. And just some more example of fossils. This image was actually taken quite a while ago, long before I even realized that these were fossils. This is a spectacular, either a tooth or a spike of one of those reptilian creatures that is just incredible. I think this is taken about 5 years ago now, or maybe even more. This is a very interesting example of a slice. I often use this piece of rock to show the growth of the patina and what the rock actually looks like inside. This is the Hornfels rock. This is a slice of or a fragment of one of the Hornfels rocks It shows the patina growing around the outside. That gives us an indication of age, but that has now been even more complicated with the discovery of the fossils, because now we get suddenly the appearance and the entry of the skin of the sheaths of fascia that cover different body parts and so forth, and specifically skin. And it's the skin around some of these fossils that I've been finding that previously we thought were tools and artifacts is actually different. The different types of skin of the different creatures that fossilizes and metamorphosizes in different colors, in different finishes, whether it's smooth or very rough or reptilian skin. You can actually see the cells, and I'll show you those. I'm coming to those. But what's interesting about this, you can actually see, now that we know that we're dealing with fossils, now I look at these fragments very, very differently. And I'm seeing a pattern inside this rock. You can see very clearly that there's some sort of a pattern or a formation inside this fragment. It's not just a smooth rock. And it is exactly this kind of information and whatever the content is of this fossil that we'll be able to see once we've scanned it with that photon emission technology scanning device, or sorry, the proton emission technology eventually. But in the meantime, with a very sophisticated X-ray scanning, which I'll be delivering to Pretoria. So this might actually be one of the fragments that I'll take to Pretoria on Wednesday morning in 2 days' time for the preliminary scanning, to really just have proof of concept to see if that technology can penetrate this very dense rock. Now, keep in mind, what you're seeing here is the example that when these body parts fossilize, when they are trapped in the mud and the water, all the minerals around it, they undergo complete metamorphosis and transmutation. Let me just plug my computer in. I forgot to plug it in. There we go. Undergoes complete metamorphosis and transmutation and becomes what is recognized by mainstream geology as hornfels rocks, or hornfels, or ringstone. And it is for that reason that those long elongated stones ring so beautifully, because not only does it turn from carbon to silica or quartz or silica dioxide, quartzitic stone and rock, but it is also full of muscle and blood from the organic matter, whether it's a leg bone or a heart or whatever it is, specifically the long elongated stones that are more likely leg bones or pieces of arms or whatever that are filled with that were originally muscle around the bone. You cannot separate or distinguish the bone from the muscle. When the rock breaks, you cannot see it on the inside, because there's been complete metamorphosis and transmutation into this hornfels rock. That is the major breakthrough discovery here. So this is going to be a whole new shift in the way that geologists are going to have to approach this area of science and new discovery. So this is why I say it's possibly some of the most important breakthrough archaeological and geological discovery in the last 100 or 200 years, because we have so many of these fossils and we can literally go crazy and analyze so many of them and start putting together pieces of the puzzle of what these creatures look like. So I'm hoping that these scans will expose some unimaginable internal organs or body parts, like that tail of the crocodile, which was just a huge surprise. We did not expect that. So let's carry on. There's the Taurus stone that I mentioned. Now, many years ago, I would have looked at these stones and thought, okay, these are possibly cone-shaped tools, especially the one on the right. Now I realize that these are just fossils and fossilized body parts. This is possibly a tooth. The one on the right is possibly a tooth or a spike. I have no idea what the others are. Different body parts, also maybe teeth and spikes of reptilian dinosaur-like creatures. We know this because you'll see later we have many examples and photographs of giant, beautiful body parts that are, you can see what was originally the muscle inside and then the skin on the outside that is fossilized into these beautiful reptilian skin, the outside layer of the rock. which 10 years ago or 11 years ago, when I first saw these same rocks, I had no idea what I was looking at. Here's a great example of just the kind of small fossils that you find. This I found many, many years ago. It's been in my museum as a strange shaped rock. Now I know it's no longer a rock. It's actually just a fossil. Whether it's part of a spine, it looks like it would be part of a spine, or something like that. It's just another angle of that same stone. I'm going to come back to the giant footprint. These are just the measurements of the giant footprint. I'm going to come back to that because, I might as well talk about it because these are right next to each other. This is phenomenal, brand new discovery. So this is the actual giant footprint that we go to on tour and special expeditions. And then visiting my friend John, who has some of the most beautiful stone paintings, the rock stone paintings with that phenomenal paintings of stone circles on rock with that phenomenal paint or chemical that they used that has withstood weathering, withstood patina growth, withstood thousands and thousands of years of weathering, and is still visible sometimes really beautifully. Well, John has something on his farm and this is it, which is a broken stone, as you can see. And I believe that this could possibly be another footprint of such a giant, the heel part of it, where you can see, and this cross section here is more or less the same size as the heel over here. So it's just beautiful. Just phalluses. This is a fossilized phallus stone, whether it was carved or whether it's a real phallus or a different body part. This one is very important because, again, it gives us the indication of the patina that grows all over it. So, and you can see the color of this patina. That is a very different, a light reddish, brownish color, very different from some of the other stones. Just stones I've been collecting for many years, 11 years, not realizing that these were actually fossils, and spikes and teeth. And this is one of the great new discoveries that was found in January 2018, just more than a year ago. And this is just beautiful. You can see this is a hoof of an extinct creature now. It's quite large. That's probably a foot across from there to there. It's a hoof. You can see this is where the bone would have come in, leg bone, and that was severed and sawn off. You can see actually saw marks on there. So somebody was sawing this animal, was sawing that hoof off that creature. This is phenomenal. This is actually, this seems to be the front part of a finger. You can see where this was actually collected right in our very garden at Stone Circle premises. And this is where the bone comes in. The rest of it is just the skin around that severed finger. This is the bone that came in there. This is the one area where you can see the bone is on the outside of some of these fossils, but once you break it, you cannot see it on the inside of the fossil. And that's a very important realization. Just another close-up picture, you can see the bone that went in there, and the rest of it is the meat and the skin around the muscle, the meat and the skin around that finger. I did not show the other image that actually shows the bottom part of that finger that has got the accumulated blood vessels at the bottom. Clearly see them as they congealed at the bottom of that fossilized fingertip. There it is as it was in the ground after it was dug up. This is the top part of it where the fingernail was attached. And this section here, that's the front part of the finger. It could be a toe as well, front part of a toe or a finger. You can see my foot, the tip of my foot here, bottom left, that's the tip of my shoe. So it just shows you how big that fingertip or the toe was. It's the size of my foot. So this is not a small character. Not sure what that is. Let's just carry on. I've just threw these together. This is really where you can just see internal structure, the bone or something on the inside, and the muscle or skin on the outside of that. And here on the right, you can see what could be cells of skin, of thick skin that once covered this, or muscle that you can actually see the cells forming there around on top of this bone that was underneath there. This stuff just becomes so awesome and beautiful. So this is the large part of the stone that I'm going to go back to. And I first saw this 10 years ago, and I didn't think anything about it. I just thought it's just a big rock with some weird, half of it is smooth and the other half of it is rough. Didn't give it another thought because I couldn't figure it out from a geological perspective. It didn't make any sense, so I just let it go. But now suddenly, when you look at it, you realize, oh my goodness, this is actually fossilized dinosaur skin or reptilian skin, and I've got more beautiful close-up images of that. And here you've got more of these body parts. This is right on top of the mountain. And you just really see, this is where you can see the strange anatomical, organic features. These are not shapes that rocks form. And this is why they have such weird shapes, because these are clearly very shapes that once in mud, fossilized, and now have been exposed, been lying there for who knows how long, thousands of years, been lying there exposed. There on top, you can see the the rough skin that was on the outside, or whatever part, organ that was. And let's see where I go. Oh, this is a close-up of some of the reptilian skin cells. You can see the size of my fingers there next to it. And there's another one. And just another one of those strange body parts. You can see whatever it was connected to in the body there. There might have been a bone sticking out there that just then was severed. Once these fossils are formed and have been fossilized, they then become rock and they become brittle and hard. So if they are then struck by lightning, or they roll down the hill, or they swept away by a large body of water and they hit other rocks, they can break and split. And that's when you see the other attachments to it that may have been there originally have broken off, and then they start to grow the patina on it, and then you end up with something like this. But you can see how the skin, or the sheath, or the covering of this body part then fossilized like that. Here we are at the giant footprint, just so you can see the size of it there. In relationship to the other footprint that I showed you. And then this is the other interesting thing. I've been finding these egg-shaped, there's no better description than egg-shaped stones for 11 years now. I've been photographing them and ignoring them, thinking that they're just weird-shaped stones. And now I'm beginning to think, after going into detailed research into dinosaur eggs, and dinosaur eggs that just fossilized, and they scattered all over the place in all shapes and sizes. What you may not be aware of is that dinosaur eggs come in weird shapes and sizes. Some of them actually elongated, like it almost looks like a long, foot-long bread roll, right? And they don't look like eggs at all, and they don't have the typical egg shape. They're actually very weird shapes. You wouldn't even think of it as an egg, to round, very round eggs in dinosaurs, to very large eggs. So what I've done in my museum now, I've actually put an ostrich egg in the museum alongside these other round and egg-shaped stones, just so people can start thinking about the size of the creature. We all know the size of what sizes ostriches are, and we can now imagine, if the dinosaur or the egg, we can start imagining the size. Now, this is clearly much larger than an ostrich egg, and we might be dealing with something like a T-Rex or that kind of a large bird or a dinosaur in this particular instance. Oh, this is interesting, just as a close-up of a hole through a very large Taurus stone. This is actually John, the guy that's got the rock paintings on his farm. And he found this piece of stone, which I trust was either a larger Taurus stone, or who knows what, or somebody drilled this hole into it a long time ago, and he's actually using this as a weight to hold the roof of his house down. So you can see how people find Torah stones of all shapes and sizes, and they use them for all kinds of reasons and purposes. So when we read about the Torah stones, these advanced energy generators that were used as weights for digging sticks by people in ancient times, including the Bushmen, probably, we know that they didn't make them. They just picked them up and they used them because they were very useful tools. And here we have John in the modern day using a stone with a hole through it as a giant weight to hold down the roof of his house. There's just there you go. You can see the wire runs up to the roof and holds down the piece of wood that holds the roof down. And this is just another picture of that what I believe to be a heel of another giant, like the giant footprint, that is lying right next to John's house. And I'm not sure where the other half of the stone is. I trust it's probably there somewhere. We need to go exploring and finding that other piece. So when I announce the next Stone Circle research expedition, I'll probably include this. We'll go there and look for the other half of the stone. That'll be a very exciting discovery. And it's probably there. This is just another picture, another angle of that, another angle of it. And again, you can see all the stuff around it. Have no idea how that particular or what that medium is that footprint may have been made in, just a large blob of mud that then metamorphosized and broke away from the others. This is just very weird. Again, another more strange anomalies as you go up the mountain and find weird things in these rocks that you realize are not rocks but fossils. Not quite sure what fossil or what geological activity this would have or created this kind of rock, I suspect. And then obviously when you find stones like this, you can see my foot. And this is just, as you walk through the mountains, you find these things everywhere. Just another anomaly, weird shaped stones, weird shaped rocks, and then these, it's like this was a wet or a piece of steak at one stage, and some animal clawed at it with its claws while it was eating it or holding it, and then it just became hard and fossilized. This picture doesn't really give it justice. When you see it, it literally looks like a piece of steak with claw marks in it. If you see there's a larger picture slightly further away from it, especially when you pour water on it and it goes wet. It's quite spectacular. The color in the picture has also distorted a bit, so you don't appreciate it as well as you do when you see it for real. This is obviously a much bigger rock. This is probably about 3 feet across, so much too big for me to pick up and bring to the museum. So these are all the journeys that we take to the stone circles, walking through the mountains and exploring not just the stone circles, but also the fossils and the exciting new discoveries around them. Again, phenomenal, weird stuff. Looks like organic matter that is just fossilized with skin and other body parts around it. I can speak volumes about this, but I want to move on. Again, another large egg that is just sitting in the soil. Potentially a large dinosaur egg. You can see my foot there for scale. And then just more here to the left, that looks like a tooth or a spike. I'm not sure whether these are teeth or spikes of these dinosaur-like creatures. And again, 2 more stones that look like eggs, a dinosaur or reptilian eggs. And then obviously when you see this kind of shape in the grass while you walk up the mountain, you know that that is not a rock. That is clearly a fossil or a previous body part that's fossilized. There's one of those, which previously I would have called this a cone-shaped tool, but now I'm a little bit wiser and I realize this is not a cone-shaped tool. This is just a fossil. Now, I need to, at this stage, distinguish between cone-shaped tools and these cone-shaped fossils. Now, there's no doubt in my mind, and from the drawings, the cone-shaped tools discovered in Syria and in Iraq, that are thousands and thousands of cones all over Iraq, especially in Ur and in Eridu, where the ancient cities are of the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, Enki's original city on Earth. That's what it seems to be, in Eridu and Ur, and the city of Abraham. And there are thousands of these cone-shaped tools scattered all over the place. And archaeologists have no clue what they are. But one of the people that was on my most recent Stone Circle research expedition has just recently been on a trip through Iraq, and she was blown away by all those cone-shaped tools. Unfortunately, at the time she was in Iraq, she was not aware of my research and the cone-shaped tools at that stage. And she didn't take proper photographs, so she's got some pictures of them, but they're on display and they're sort of all over the place. And as I said, many of these are now in museums like the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose, California, that has got cuneiform inscriptions on them telling us that those cone-shaped tools were used for the construction of the temples of Sumer or in Sumeria. And some of them actually refer to the construction and the erection of the temple of Inanna. And so we know that the cone-shaped tools are present in all ancient cultures. Plus, here in South Africa, I have some tools that are clearly cone-shaped tools and not fossils like this one here. Whether this is a tooth or a spike of a dinosaur-like creature. There's another one. That's just a different picture of the same thing. And more of these strange anomalies. And then we get to one of the great discoveries of this latest research expedition in January 2019. And this is a fossilized heart in a butchery or a crematorium, or where you dissect people or bodies or animals and so forth. This is obviously a heart. Anyone can see that. There's a septum in the center, the ventricles, and then the muscle, the heart muscle all the way around. And at the bottom, it's a lot thicker. This is just beautiful. And this I found, literally, I stood on it, looked down and said, oh my God, this is a split open, fossilized heart. Literally a year after discovering the other beautiful fossilized heart, the complete heart. This is just another photograph of me holding it at the entrance to the Stone Circle Lodge and Museum. And this is one of the artifacts that I'm going to have scanned in a few days to see if we can get more detailed inner structure of this. And this is just weird stuff that's going on. Keep in mind, some of these giants, some of these fossils are from giants that are really, really large. And it's difficult to imagine what's going on here. And the reason I'm interested in this is because this stone or potential fossil is very close. You can actually see the bone up there on the left. There it is, the very large bone, a bone head with a severed shaft of the bone. I'm coming to that. There it is. That's the bone head surrounding it. And this section here, you can see there's a very different coloration, and the fat and the bone marrow that would have been sticking out there when the bone shaft was severed from that bone head would have metamorphosized and fossilized very differently, and it did exactly that. It's a completely different color to the rest of that bone head. That would have been the exterior of the bone, and here you would have had the blood and the bone marrow sticking out, fossilized very, very differently. There you can see it. There's just another close-up of it. Just a beautiful example. This is a huge bone that would belong to a giant, maybe 100 or 200 meters tall. Who knows which body part this came from. And as you can see and hear, this fossil phenomenon has pretty much taken over the Stone Circle research. The main reason for this, and I might as well come out with it right now, because I see we've just come up to the top of the hour. So I want to start opening it up for questions and answering some questions, because the most important thing that and the realization that I've reached now is many, in fact, most of the stone circles that I've been studying and researching for the last 11 years, since 2007, are actually built and made with fossils. This is a huge shock. So This scrambles the timelines. We have thousands and millions of stone circles that are still covered by soil. We see them from aerial photographs certain times of the day where you can actually see them beautifully. You can see them on Google Earth photographs. They're not visible when you walk on the ground. They're only visible from aerial pictures. They're covered by sand and soil and grass. Those are the original stone circles that are still covered from the flood. But many of them have been eroded and exposed and reused, reactivated, and possibly used by the Anunnaki or whoever was using them at that stage. Our research and our channelings and our shamanic connection and the sight whisperers, the shamans that talk to the guardians and the spirit guides of these places tell us that it was the Anunnaki that were active there. But there was also some other mysterious activity going around here. We don't have enough time to go into that in this session, but in future sessions, and also on my new channel, I'll be going into all this in great detail, 20 to 30 minutes every week on my new channel coming up very soon. So this is just spectacular. Now suddenly we have a whole new spin on the stone circles, because many of them actually built with fossilized body parts of these beings and creatures in this part of the world. And my guess is that whoever built and structured these stone walls into cymatic patterns, because keep in mind, they are machines. Each stone circle is a cymatic pattern that is created by the shape of the sound frequency coming out of the earth at that specific point, turning into an amp. So it's a machine to create sound, resonance, magnetic fields, electromagnetic fields, and basically creating energy that was being used for activity. That is still a huge discussion, what it was actually used for. One of the things I believe is that whoever structured these were clearly very, very advanced technologically. They knew what was going on, not only on Earth, but in our solar system and in the entire universe. They had a very different understanding of what's really going on to what we have. And what we actually have here in Southern Africa is the largest machine that's ever been constructed. The largest machine in modern day, in modern times, is the Large Hadron Collider in CERN. Well, that is a tiny little snippet, a tiny little machine compared to what we have here in Southern Africa and also in other parts of the world. But the largest evidence of it is here in South Africa and Zimbabwe mostly, where we have more than 10 million of these structures. So this is most likely at this stage, as I sit here talking to you, the largest machine ever constructed in Earth's history. And right now, I believe that it was constructed because of necessity to make the Earth habitable. This large machine that was resonating frequencies was most likely used to create an atmosphere, to enrich the atmosphere with oxygen by sucking water from the rivers. And again, so much more to be said about that, because we have channels that run from the stone circles, channels that run and end in the rivers. Many, many of these channels that would then use the magnetic fields. And remember, magnetic energy can be used to suck water uphill or upstream or create water bridges and so forth. So you can suck water uphill. You can then vaporize the water. You can do all kinds of things with it and actually enrich it and use it to create an atmosphere by putting oxygen into the atmosphere. So I think that these stone circles were most likely a machine that was actually generating an atmosphere, but much more to be said about that, with a lot of introspective thinking has gone into that. So here, large knuckle. Here's another picture of the heart as I found it, lying there in the field, just like that. That's what it looked like when I found it, lying there for who knows how long, hundreds of years, thousands of years. Obviously, every time when there's large water or a big rainstorm, it probably gets pushed around a bit. So the fact that you find these, that it's not covered by water, is really a miracle. Or mud, sorry, not covered by mud or sand from the last heavy rainfall, that it's just lying there presenting itself, is actually an absolute miracle. So there's a better exposure of it. The heart, the septum, the ventricles. And here's just an indication of the walls of the stone circles. And many of these are actually, as you can see in these piles, many of these are actually fossils and not just stones. Here's an example of one of those stones. You can clearly see this is not a rock. This is a fossilized body part. Whatever that was, whatever else it was attached to, it's broken off now, and so forth. So this is truly a magnificent breakthrough discovery. I'm just going to go through these. Oh, this is just go back one just to give you an idea. This is just an average sort of collection of fossils that I bring back every time we go up the mountain. I have stopped doing that now because it's simply just too much, and I only collect the very exquisite and most obvious samples that I find to add to the collection. So this is just an example of what it is that I find when I go up searching for fossils. This is just beautiful. This was actually found near the reptilian fossils that I've got. This seems like the jawbone, this part of the jaw, if you can see me, this part of the jaw where the jawbone goes up right under your ear, next to your ear, to connect with the top part of the skull. And except this is like 50 times the size of a normal, this part of the human jawbone. So if this belongs to a humanoid, which it seems that it does, it's not an Anunnaki. This is most likely a much larger being. And from some of the channelings and shamanic readings, it seems that some of these giants were actually the slaves of the Anunnaki themselves. They were actually cloned and created by the Anunnaki to work as slaves for them because they were large, they could pick things up, they could move things around. Things get very weird. This is a spectacular example of 2 teeth marks or claw marks into what was a steak or a piece of meat. You can see the reptilian skin, and then the claw marks that go right into, through the skin, into that what was a steak at the time. So some creature was busy eating this other creature when it was covered by mud and then eventually fossilized. And then this came out at some stage later. This is important to notice this, to recognize these claw or teeth marks, because this is a small one. This is, the size of like an ostrich egg, right? But we have found much larger ones and in places that are least expected. I'm going to speed this up so we can get to the Q&A. This is just another angle photograph of that beautiful hoof with where the bone came in and these incredible saw marks. You can see those saw marks. Somebody was sawing it off. There's another angle. There's a bone. Clearly that's a bone, not a stone. There's a claw, some creature. Who knows what kind of creature that is. Again, when you see these kind of things on these stones, you realize that, stones don't have babies. This is where ligaments and tendons were attached to this body part. And then when it fossilized, it breaks off there, or it was broken off already before. I'm going to speed up. These are ribs. There's a beautiful long rib there and then a shorter rib at the bottom. You can clearly see on this right edge where it was attached to the rib cage. And you can see this bone knuckle compared to the size of my shoe. Once again, the shaft is broken off. For some reason, we're finding a lot of knuckleheads, bone knuckleheads, and all the shafts have been broken off. It's as if they were extracting something from the bone marrow or the bone shafts. Again, a mysterious fossil with some skin or muscle around it. That could be bone surrounded by muscle, who knows what, or it could be a finger. This is a close-up of some of the reptilian skin. Another close-up of reptilian skin. This is a beautiful example of the epithelial cells that have completely fossilized, growing up into the skin. And this is one of the examples that samples I'll most likely be scanning in a few days to see what else we can see on the inside. And this is the heart, the beautiful heart that was found just more than a year ago. The entire whole heart. There you can see the aorta going in, and then the coronary artery that goes across the surface of the heart. That is most likely an Anunnaki heart, or a being that's about 3 times the size of humans. If this is a humanoid heart, this could very well be an Anunnaki heart. Here is a mystery. This is a weird stone. Doesn't make any sense what this is. That's like somebody burnt this with a laser beam into the rock, and then you can see it in a very large rock until you get a bird's eye view of it, and you realize that this is most likely and could be a fossilized foot, where there's the ball joint where the bone, the leg bone may have come in, the front part of the bone or the back part of the bone, and then the tendon that is attached. In our bone, there's a tendon that comes from the leg bone that comes down here. We have a tendon that runs attached to the foot. And that there, that looks like somebody laser blasted that stone, is where that tendon would have been attached to this very large foot. I know it's very strange. It's rounded. It doesn't have toes. Keep in mind that the entire rock, including the entire body part, including the toes or the organ, is within the mud of the mud and the water that covered it. And this could have broken off, creating a weird shape, or this being literally had feet without toes. Who knows? We don't know what we're dealing with here. Clearly a very large being. If this is indeed a foot with a tendon or another body part, who knows? With that tendon that was attached to the bone that would sit in this beautiful hollow over here. When you look at this, if you wet this piece, it literally looks like a cross-section through a steak. When you go to the butcher and you buy a steak, you can see the fat through here, this fat here. And this is just now fossilized, and this is now crystal. The fat becomes yellowy white crystalline substance, and then the rest of the steak or the muscle becomes black or dark rock. So this is literally like a cross-section of a fossilized steak. Much better when you see it in real life and you actually put water on it. This is a giant phallus. This blows my mind. This is close to Adam's calendar. This was actually removed from Adam's calendar, and this just is unbelievable. Whether this is a real phallus of a giant or a sculpture, who knows? But it is just too weird for words. It's very large. It's hopefully you can get the scale. It's probably about 1.2 meters tall. It's very, very weird. I suspect it's possibly a true fossilized phallus from a very large being. Just another angle. The sides would have been broken off, carved off at some stage. And you can see it's been used as an ornament. And once again, this is that fossilized tail of the little crocodile or reptile inside the entire rock or stone. Okay, there it is. The entire stone, the mud, the water around it, completely metamorphosizes and becomes this black rock known as Hornfels rock. Now, we've been through this, the cone-shaped tools together with the torus stones, creating very, very powerful advanced technology, not for this session right now. These, you can clearly see that's a leg bone. You've seen me ring that stone. That's the very first tool and artifact I actually collected for my museum. That's the one that I've been ringing for 11 years now. It rings like a bell, and the one below it as well. This one below it actually resembles, if you've ever eaten chicken, if you're a carnivore and you've eaten chicken, you'll know that there's a bone in the chicken that looks identical to this, except it's tiny and it's quite soft. This front part of it is a little soft. It's more like cartilage. And this is a fossilized part of a very large version of that. Well, this would have been a very large chicken. And these are the ones that ring so beautifully because they have meat, they have the bone surrounded by muscle, surrounded by blood, and the blood is full of what? The blood is full of iron. So now you've got the combination of the bone, the muscle, the iron in the muscle, and that is why these stones ring like bells. And that is why, most likely, whoever reconstructed these stone circles would have used these fossils for the walls of the stone circles because of their acoustic properties, because they ring like bells, and they're better than normal rock and normal quartz. It is absolutely brilliant and ingenious. Just me with some of the original cone-shaped tools that I collected and this other weird shaped thing, whatever that may be. Now these cone-shaped tools no longer are cone-shaped tools. Many of them are just fossils. Some of them remain cone-shaped tools. And I'll skip now and just go through these just to show you the weird shape of fossils. And And now we get to the really mind-blowing stuff, because now suddenly even the little sphinx at Adam's calendar, when you start looking at this, keeping in mind the large fossils that we have, you realize that this is most likely also just a fossilized body part. And pretty much all the stones at Adam's calendar are also just large body parts. This is what I suspect is the very large heart of a giant. In channelings, we've been told that this large heart was a heart of a giant that was placed there by the stone at the giant footprint. There you can see where the aorta or one of the veins may have gone in, very distinct flattened area that the aorta may have broken off once it fossilized. Just a very strange shape. It's a close-up of that flattened area. This is a very recent fossil I picked up that looks like a pelvic bone from a creature. There you can see the very rock fossil. There you have it, pelvic. I suspect it's a pelvic bone or a fossil of a pelvic bone of some creature. Have no idea the shape or size of the creature. There's another claw that adds to the collection of claws. I now have probably about 9 claws. No idea what creature or what part of the creature it may have been from. There's another angle of that pelvic bone, just to get an idea. Spectacular. This was a new bone that just washed down the mountain recently after some very heavy rains. It was literally lying in the road as I was driving past. I stopped, jumped out, and was very glad that I did. This is one of those ones that I call a keeper to bring to the museum. And just to show you, again, I'm not going to talk about this. We've run out of time now. This is just very briefly the broken pieces of the Wonderstone or the Clarksdorp sphere that broke because of the frequency and the very powerful energy fields of the Taurus stone. And you can see the biggest piece is cracking now, again because of the recent adding of Taurus stones in close proximity to this particular stone. There's a shoulder blade, very large shoulder blade, 5 times, 6 times, maybe 10 times the size of a human. Again, there's another angle. Just weird fossils, wonderful fossils. I mean, this is just too weird for words. Whatever the hell that may be, I have no idea, but spectacular discoveries every time we go out. Another claw. And here you have an example of the stones in the stone walls and the fact that most, if not all of these stones are actually fossils. There's another claw that's been added to our collection. And so go more eggs, more round stones that seem to be fossilized eggs, or other body parts. The one on the left could be a heart. And so it goes, weird stuff like this. And this is what I was leading up to. So remember the fossilized, let me turn this upside down. Remember the fossilized stake with the claw marks in it? Well, here you have a much bigger version of it lying. You can see the claw marks coming in, teeth or claw marks from that side that's actually lying on the ground. So this is just a spectacular. This is one of the stones at Adam's calendar. And I have another one that's actually lying the right way up. So it looks like even the stones at Adam's calendar and the many spectacular dolerite rocks, these are recognized as dolerite. These are not granite, or it's part of the granite family. Now we understand why they come from somewhere else, because they are most likely, in my opinion right now, actually body parts, fossils of giants. Here's, you got the claw marks, the teeth marks going in there. There you got Javier standing next to it. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is not at Adam's calendar. This is very close to that giant bone, that knuckle bone with the severed and the cut off femur. But we have a very similar one like this at Adam's calendar. This is it. This is that giant bone that's been cut off here. These two are lying right next to each other. Here's another claw, and so we go. And right now, I'm of the opinion that even the stones at Adam's calendar believe it or not, actually fossils, giant body parts that were actually used hundreds of thousands of years ago by the constructors or Enki that built the site. And they used it because the resonance capacity and the resonance conductivity of these stones, because they're full of silica, quartz, and muscle and blood, and therefore iron, and therefore resonate beautifully, ring beautifully. Some more of the stones at Adam's calendar that for 11 years I've been scratching my head. Now very clearly I see them as fossils. There's another one. And these, what you can see is the person standing there is standing on sandstone. That's the Black Reef quartzite. And this sharp pointed stone, that's the fossil, is dolerite. That is not sandstone or quartzite. This is dolerite, which is metamorphosized, a metamorphosized body part, slightly different metamorphosis than what we have in Waterval-Boven. These guys at Adam's calendar underwent a slightly different process. And this, in this instance, these stones or these body parts turn into dolerite. Here you have another example of clearly not a rock, some body part that's been either shaped or formed, or who knows what the hell that is. Here's another one. This is a repetitive form, and maybe it's a spike of a giant creature. This is huge. This is like 1.2 meters across. And there's another one. Clearly not stones, but organic shapes. And here we have another one with those two teeth marks or claw marks going in there, or scratch marks on this giant stone, this giant fossil at Adam's calendar. There you can see it from a distance. And just a stash of fossils brought into the museum. Now I'm going to give up now. I'm going to stop because it's getting overwhelming, even for me. So let me come out of this. And how do I come out of this? I come out of this, I guess
Michael, if you hover over the Zoom app, it should pop up on the top right, I think, stop sharing.
Zoom app. Where am I?
Yeah, just hover your cursor over the top tab, and you should see it up top.
New share. Let me just let me close that.
Yeah, if you close that window, you'll be able to see it.
How do I close this window?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm at a loss here. So I guess let me just close that, and I'll go in. No, where am I? No, I have no idea how to do this.
Okay, hover over your browser, and you just need to find your Zoom app. That way you can take the screen share off.
More video, disable participants, video setting, hide video. Okay, this is interesting. It's easy to share, not that easy to stop sharing. Okay, that's.
I'm gonna stop your video and start it back, and maybe that will take care of it. Oh, we're still have your screen share.
Okay. Well, I'm at a loss here. So we've entered this very differently. I'm not sure why, but stop share. There we go. Stop share. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the Q&A. Hopefully, there's some people that have got questions, and so let's go back to incomplete Taurus stone. Many years ago, I found chipped off near. Yeah, stone was chipped and thrown away. Have you ever seen this? Like I said before, yes, we have many of these Taurus stones in the museum now that have been used for various things. You can see they've been used as grindstones, as candle holders, as weights, all kinds of things, and are still powerful. Most of them still emit very powerful energies, even though some of them have been ground down from the top and from the bottom. They still emit very powerful energies, and magnetic fields that we've measured with Tesla, Tesla meters and micro Tesla and frequencies and so forth. Read the incomplete Taurus stone. Okay, so I'll contact Annette. Del, what is the new channel and is it on YouTube? Okay, yes. So the new channel will not be on YouTube. The new channel is going to be a video on demand. It's going to be a subscription channel which I'll basically use for a source of funding for the research for the museum. The stuff that I do obviously costs money and time, and for me to be able to make videos and share and do research and send the things for analysis and DNA analysis and scanning and so forth, this all takes time and money. So the one way of sourcing funds is to create a subscription channel and really make it as juicy as I possibly can by taking the subscribers on a journey and actually taking you to these sites every week. As I said, 20 to 30 minutes, plus hundreds of hours of old archive material that we have, many of the YouTube videos that I'm going to make available there, so everything is in one place and you don't have to search for it. And some of the YouTube videos I'll start disabling and shortening so that we drive people to this channel. I've been sharing all this information for 13 years now without charging for it and making it freely available. Now for me to be able to continue doing research and finish the museum and actually continue this work, I need a source of funding. So this channel is really a subscription channel that'll become the main source of funding. And if I can find just 1,000 people to subscribe, which I trust and I believe is going to be achievable in the first year, this will become a very viable source of funding for the research, for me to be able to survive and continue to go out and find exquisite places that I have been to, that I can take you and take the subscribers and the viewers to these incredible places, from Sodilo Hills in Botswana to Namibia, the ancient sites there, to the fairy circles in Namibia, and all the ancient sites in Namibia, and I mean in Botswana, to Zimbabwe, which is just covered in ancient sites. The mystery there is just spectacular. Some of the stuff that we filmed right now with the Sacred Sites tour that we just finished is absolutely mind-blowing. We went to sites that I never imagined could be possible, and there is so much more. We have elders that have started opening up to us and sharing with us secret knowledge that they've held for a long time of underground tunnels, ancient mines, secret tunnels and passages, underground rivers that are sacred, ancient gold mines, ancient mine dumps that have been re-exposed. Once again, I'll show how we can determine whether mountains are actually ancient mine dumps, because believe it or not, we have modern mine dumps that some of which can no longer be even identified as modern mine dumps, that look identical to the ancient mine dumps. Modern mine dumps that are like 60 or 70 years old, or in Johannesburg, some of them are 100 years old now, And some of these modern mine dumps that are 100 years old are covered by stones and trees and rocks and grass. And you'd think it's a mountain or a weird shaped hill until you start digging. And suddenly you come across this yellow sand and you realize this is a weird kind of mountain. What kind of mountain is this? Well, we have exactly the same scenario around me here in Waterval-Boven and other parts of South Africa and Zimbabwe, where mountains have been chopped away due to roadworks or farming or town or yellow sand. That clearly tells us we either had a flood, so that's either a deposit of sand, yellowy sand from beaches or the ocean, but most likely if it's very yellow, as you will see in some of my videos, that is most likely old gold mining activity and yellow sand from gold mining activity. So I'm just giving you a sample of what will be on my new channel. It's very exciting. I'm really excited about this because it gives me the opportunity and a reason to actually revisit many of these sites that I've only been to maybe once before and have very exciting memories and want to go revisit and film and document the things that I've seen and explored over 13 years in the mountains of Southern Africa. And that's just going to make a beautiful, exciting journey of discovery that I will take you with me. So you'll be there viewing the discoveries as I do them, as I make them. Some of them will be brand new discoveries and some of them I'll be going back to show you and revisit. So that's the new Michael Tellinger channel. We plan to launch it literally within hopefully even this coming week. It's just the technical stuff, and I'm not a technical guy, so we just got to make sure that the technical stuff works. I also, incidentally, I had to shut down my Patreon channel, the Patreon channel for the support of the Stone Circle Museum, because it was so complicated, so difficult for me, so unuser-friendly. I couldn't even log on and update videos and information and pictures of the progress of the Stone Circle Museum, which, by the way, is now literally within 1.5 meters of completion. The final building is probably going to be finished by Wednesday this week, which is the internal pillar of the museum. After that, it's just the roof that needs to go on, and then the internal display and electrics and so forth. So I had to stop the Patreon channel because I could not actually work it. It was so unuser-friendly, and I wasn't getting the money that the people were pledging towards the Stone Circle Museum. I wasn't getting any of it. Patreon has somehow kept it for themselves. So, I felt even bad about that. So I just literally canceled that channel and sent an email to the people that signed up saying, I'm sorry, but I can't manage it. And I will be launching a new patron or a support channel or a support fund for the Stone Circle Museum. Keep in mind, the museum is unique. It has precious, priceless, unique, one-of-a-kind tools, artifacts, fossils, information, and it is going to be a world-class museum. Go to my website, have a look at the pictures. I'll upload the latest pictures, hopefully in the next day or two. It is just getting more and more beautiful. And it will be a world-class museum, but it costs money to run and maintain a museum. I don't have those kind of funds. So unless I get the support from the people that are passionate about this, that want to support this initiative and want to support me in the ongoing research and the maintenance of the museum, it's going to be very tough to do that. So please help me spread the word as far as that's concerned. Okay, Felicity. So to finish on the Michael Tellinger channel, on the new channel, it'll be a page on my website, michaeltellinger.com. You can go there and subscribe and find the page on my website. Open it up, sign up, and start the process. As I said, there'll be hundreds of hours of archive material, previously unseen and unshown videos of some of the workshops and the conferences that I've held and attended by some of the smartest people in the world today. The YouTube channel is going to continue operating, and it will have short 3 to 5 minute video clips. That'll be the drivers and the teasers for the main channel. So I'll still be sharing information, but not all of it, so that I can draw people to the main channel. And Felicity Harley, who do you think built the stone circles and what for? Thank you, Felicity. That is a very important question. At this stage, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said, it was the Anunnaki. Right now, I'm not so sure anymore. I certainly believe the Anunnaki had a lot to do with it. It's quite possible that they may have found the stone circles here already when they arrived. It may have been a more advanced civilization, more conscious civilization of beings before the Anunnaki. And if it is what I think it is, if the stone circles are in fact a giant machine for terraforming, for creating an atmosphere, for making the world habitable, it could be the Anunnaki, but it could also be some other beings. The Anunnaki were probably instrumental in fixing some of them or reconstructing some of them. And most certainly, I believe, reactivating a small percentage of them after the Great Flood. Because by now it should be clear to everyone that the Great Flood is most likely the event. And I'm talking about the Great Flood, the biblical flood that is referred to in the Bible. Whether that happened 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, who cares at this stage? We know that it confused the timelines completely, first of all, because it just really throws a stick in the mud, a proverbial stick in the mud, and lots of body parts in the mud. But it confuses the timeline dramatically. But it also gives us very clear physical evidence for a flood, a huge deluge flood event that destroyed all these structures, covered them by soil, sand, water, and only a few of them were then reopened and reactivated once the waters and the mud subsided. And then some of the fossils that appeared from that mud fossilization process were used in rebuilding and reconstructing the stone walls of the stone circles that are visible now. Not all of them, but many of them. And this is the big shock and mystery that has just reared its head. So I believe that the stone circles were originally created for terraforming, creating an oxygen-rich atmosphere, and keeping it up there in the sky. And obviously a lot more to be said about other energy devices like the temples in Egypt, and churches and cathedrals, and all the ancient sites from Borobudur to Angkor Wat to Sacsayhuaman. All these ancient sites are energy generating devices that are like giant circuit boards that were generating energy and somehow channeling it up in the sky, into the sky. I'll be talking a lot more on my channel about this in great detail. This is a huge subject that'll probably cover at least 6 hours, if not more, of the episodes on my new channel. So, Lavina, will you give detailed information of your new channel? Will you present findings as insight every week? Yes, like I've said already. So the channel will be available on my website, michaeltellinger.com. Just go on there. As soon as it's available, you'll be able to sign up and you'll start a journey. So basically every week you'll get a new video from me. So every person that joins the journey will start the journey in the same place. But you'll have access to all the other videos that are there already, a huge archive library of information, hundreds and hundreds of hours of viewing, if not thousands of hours of viewing on that channel. Then so you can watch all the others, but then follow that journey of discovery. So I'll take you on this journey with me, which is really part of this. Telling the story is part of the journey, and telling the story of this journey of discovery, in which lies the excitement, the adventure, and the true discovery, like being part of this process of discovery. So that's why I think it's so exciting. So I can't wait to launch that. And please spread the word, because that will be the funding to continue this research. Without that funding, there's very little I can do. And I have to pretty much carry on doing tours and sacred sites tours to keep earning a living, which then goes into, as most of it goes into doing research and building the museum and so forth. So it's sort of a catch-22. So this channel is going to become the main source of funding for the research, the real scientific research. And there's so much incredible scientific research we're going to be doing, like the scanning of the fossils and so much more, the analyzing of the frequencies and the cymatic patterns. And, I'll be talking a lot more about it in the promotion for the channel, about all the things we plan to do. So here we have Spady. Is that Bill Spady? Oh, it is Bill Spady. Hey, Bill, how are you doing, my friend? How are mainstream scholars and media responding to your research and findings? Well, Bill, strangely enough, this is a really interesting question. I have not really made a mainstream or a press release. I have not done a press release about the fossils at this stage. I'm now going to wait. I was going to do it, and then I stopped once I got the wind that I can actually have this fossil scanned by this very advanced scientific lab in Pretoria. So I'm holding back on that until the scans come back, because even one tiny scan of a fossil is huge scientific proof for what I've discovered here. Once that is back, then I will do, whether it's positive or not, we don't know how powerful the X-rays are that they have. Once they reactivate the proton scanners a year from now or so, then I know that we can really get inside these dense fossils that will show the internal structures. In the meantime, even if it's not as successful as I hope it is, I will still release the press release, and I will show the most obvious fossils, and I will invite the media, I will invite experts to the museum and hold a proper official press launch, a press release here of the fossils in the Stone Circle Museum, the current very humble Stone Circle Museum. But I will display the most pertinent and prominent and obvious fossils that everyone can see, especially people that have got medical training and training in human anatomy. They can see it instantly. And also people that have been involved in like butchers that have, been busy working with pigs' hearts and cow hearts and sheep hearts. They take one look at that and they go, oh my God, that's a pig's heart or a sheep heart or a cow heart. They recognize it quickly. So, or a leg of lamb, or whatever. It's a really interesting process that we're in right now. So I look forward to that and actually doing the proper press release. In the meantime, we keep building the Stone Circle Museum. We keep upgrading the Stone Circle Lodge, so we've got accommodation, and for that I need to build more rooms and more accommodations. So that takes money and funding. So we do it I do it as quickly as I can and where I can, and so every little bit of support helps at this stage to keep this going. So Lavina says, send us a link via email so we can easily subscribe. Absolutely. So make sure that you're on my database, that you're on my michaeltillinger.com database or on the Ubuntu database. I will send a link to both databases and let people know once the subscription link is available. And please share that with everybody. It'll be an awesome, awesome subscription channel. Thanks, Michael. Was it used as a spaceport by the Anunnaki? Well, we know that Adam's Calendar is an incredibly powerful site. Once again, I've just finished the the Sacred Sites Adventure Tour with Dean Laprini. And as I said, if you're interested in joining our journeys, please do so. Go to my website, see the upcoming journeys that we're doing. The next, I'll be doing 2 more this year. One with brilliant, mind-blowing shaman, John Paul, from Australia. He's a Canadian trained shaman who lives in Melbourne, Australia now. He is one of the wisest and smartest shamans I've ever come across. I'll be doing a shamanic journey with him. I believe it's going to be in October. And it's going to be 11 days, I think, 11 days of shamanic journeys, visiting these stone circles, doing spiritual work there, doing chanting, doing connecting to the guardians and the spirits of these sites, and shamanic journeys, and some plant medicine journeys as well, and meditation and so forth. And we will be visiting a number of sites from the Stone Circle Lodge and Museum base in this area, and measuring the frequencies, working with the frequencies in the stone circles as well, doing some research, and with the medicinal and the healing aspects of the stone circles, which we didn't even touch upon today, which is a huge area of discovery, the fact that the stone circles actually work as healing devices as well. So we'll be working with that. So that's the one journey I'll be taking this year in October. Plus, I'll probably in November, we'll be doing one more Stone Circle research expedition. And that's 2 weeks at Stone Circle Lodge and Museum. And from there, we go into the mountains every day, and we go and explore and research and find new, amazing, mind-blowing things. As you've seen from some of the photographs I've shared with you, I've now done 3 Stone Circle research expeditions, and each one is simply breathtaking, mind-blowing experience. The people that join me on those have an experience that they will cherish and really remember for the rest of their lives. Because every time we go out on these Stone Circle research expeditions, we find major new discoveries, because it allows us the time to literally go and explore and find and discover. And that's exactly what happens. We make mind-blowing new discoveries. So join me on that. And then next year in January, I'm doing another journey with Sam Osmanagic, a Bosnian Permit, Sam Osmanagic. We did a journey, sacred journey to Africa. Sam and I, our very first one in January this year. It was unbelievable. We had an incredible group of 24 people with us, and it was a spectacular journey. I trust next January's journey will be up on my website within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Please go online and check it out. Go to my website, check it out, and sign up. Don't miss that one. And if you want to get more spiritual and more, if you're more spiritual person, if you like the shamanic journeys, not that the journey with Sam is not spiritual, it's always highly and deeply spiritual, because Sam is a deeply spiritual guy. We also do meditations and so forth on that journey with Sam, but he brings a slightly different dynamic to that journey. If you want to get deeply into African consciousness, into the spirit of Africa, the spirit of the African ancestors, the spirit of the land, the spirit of the Bushmen, the Khoisan, the spirit of the animals, and the ancient sites that we visit, that's the one to come to with my dear friend Dean Laprini, the extraordinary shaman here from South Africa, from Cape Town. As I said, we just finished a journey with him. It is always a life-changing experience. And the people that come on these journeys, literally, we create a family. We are a family or a bond that will be a family and friends for life. So join us on that. So the 2 distinctly different journeys, one in January and one in March, one Sam Osmanagic and one with Dean Laprini, the Sacred Sites Adventure Tour. And let's carry on. There must have been several deluge and floods. One was ancient and fossilized, the dinosaurs and giants. You're explained now. Yeah, absolutely. There were several deluge floods. So we might actually have layers of fossils here. But again, I will show you on my channel when I've already shot these videos, we're busy editing it. You can literally see the layers of mud sitting there. And then as the mud gets compressed, you can see how it starts to form the compressed mudstone that starts to metamorphosize into soft stone. It looks like rock, but it's not rock. And it's a whole new journey of discovery how fossilization happens and how geology changes. The other important thing that comes out of this is our understanding, our lack of understanding, should I say, of the geological formation process. And what we are taught at school and at university and at geology school is very far from what is most likely the reality of how geological terrains and geology formed on Earth. Because now that we know that fossils and geological terrain on Earth can form literally within weeks, days, and even within hours because of lightning, resonance, frequency that goes into the water, into the mud, gets conducted and travels through the body parts and the stone, the elements, the minerals. There is so much that we don't know about. And this process is so much more bizarre and weird than we thought, that strange things can happen that we never imagined. And I'm now uncovering these right basically on a daily basis by working through these layers. And new information, brand new information that shows how lightning creates, is a very powerful activator of the fossilization and a metamorphosis process. That lightning is one of the key components and ingredients in creating geological formations, mountains, mountain ranges, and so forth. and obviously fossils. So, Robert, what is a time link and connection between the giants and the Anunnaki, as well as the origins of the giants? Yeah, that's a very good, a very simple, and a very complex question. This is why discovering these fossils of these strange creatures, that some of them humanoid, some of them smaller, some of them reptilian, dinosaur-like with spikes and giant teeth, some of them that seem to be humanoid, with the bones that are the same shape as humans, like that jawbone, and possibly some of the leg bones, the femurs, and the different parts of the body. It's difficult to say. So the connection between the giants and the Anunnaki, well, we know that the Anunnaki themselves were several times larger than humans, and based on sort of most popular analysis of the Anunnaki size, is that they were from twice the size of humans to about 5 times the size of humans. Just like you have different size humans, you get small people and you get very large people. The Anunnaki looks like they varied in size quite dramatically, from the Sumerian texts and from some of the other ancient texts. If if we are in fact referring to the right beings here, but we do know from rabbinical writing as well that there were all these gigantic beings on earth: the Zamzumim, the Emim, the Gibberim, the Nephilim, the Rephaim, and so on. These are all gigantic beings, giant, and they were not just giant; they were titanic, and like the Bible tells us that we look like locusts by their side. So that's tiny. If we're like locusts by the sides of the giants. And then the book of Enoch is very specific in saying that the giants were 3,000 ells tall. That would be about 1.5 kilometers. And then I found some interesting articles about oral tradition in some ancient cultures. And I need to find exactly which of these cultures it is. Sometimes you find things and you read it quickly and you read it and you're astounded by it and you go, oh my God, this is amazing. And you close the page and you forget to save it and then it's difficult to find it. But I've read some really detailed, interesting oral tradition that tells us that these people believed that the whole world was sculptured and formed by 144 giants that were a mile high. And they formed the earth and shaped the earth, formed the mountains, created the valleys and the rivers. And then they died and fell over and became part of the landscape. Now, with 144 giants that were a mile high around the world, that would, add to the landscape. Also, if you're a mile-high giant, every step you take is like half a mile or 1/3 of a mile. So for a mile-high giant to walk 1,000 miles in a day, nothing. It's like 3,000 steps. And he's walked 1,000 miles. So 144 mile-high giants that shaped the earth in ancient times. If you told me this 10 years ago, I would have told you you're crazy. If you told me this even 2 years ago, I would have still, sniggered at that. But today, now that I know that everything we've been told is a lie, and I trust that most of people on this group and those that follow my work and other research, your own research, obviously, as well. Now that we know that pretty much everything we've been fed by mainstream and our governments and our education and media and everything, pretty much everything is a lie. It's becoming very obvious that some of these ancient stories may in fact be true. And if we are dealing with a conscious creation, then why not create 144 big dudes and let them have fun like a giant's playground, like the one I just visited in Zimbabwe, which is called the Giant's Playground. And you got these giant rocks perfectly balanced on top of each other that literally takes your breath away. So the relationship between the giants and the Anunnaki is an interesting one. But it does seem that the Anunnaki may have cloned some of these larger beings that were maybe 10 or 20 meters tall that they use as slaves as well to do some of the hard labor that they didn't have time for, or move this over there. Keep in mind that the Anunnaki were not in large numbers. They didn't have, thousands of them to work and do the work. They didn't do the work. They had to create the clones and the humans to do the slave work, and then maybe some of these larger guys to to do the heavy lifting and the moving of the processed ore that then dried like giant mounds of concrete kind of sludge that they moved aside. And then they left it there, and then those dried and became like rocky outcrop mountains that today look like granite outcrops, but they're actually old mine works, just like the mine dumps, the sand, the yellow sand, that is grass and stones and trees growing on them that create these beautiful little hills and mountains. And when you dig into it, you see the yellow sand. We also have these rocky outcrops that once was the processed sludge of the cement concrete-like remains once the gold was extracted through whatever process they used, most likely sound and resonance, to separate the elements. And then they would push that up the side and leave it there. And that's most likely what happened and how the giant footprint happened that we go to on our sacred sites tours, and that I take people to on a tour when they come and visit us, or book a tour to visit the stone circles, Adam's calendar, or the giant footprint. So very interesting stuff going on here. In fact, mind-blowing stuff, and it just gets more and more exciting. So Michael says, were the giants ancient plants as well? Yes, absolutely. Giant trees, as most of us know now. We've had giants. We would have had giant trees as well. Many of you should be aware of these giant trees that have, that look like mountains, but actually giant trees that were chopped down with some advanced technology. And once we take into consideration the cone-shaped tools, the Caesar beam technology that these cone-shaped tools were most likely used for to emit Caesar beams. Again, that's for another talk or another workshop, another debate, or another lesson or a lecture for those that are new to this. Caesar technology is the key thing here. Caesar technology for cutting and Caesar technology for levitating. Once you have two Caesar beams, two cones, you can pretty much do anything you want. You can cut, you can levitate. Once the Caesar beams go out, you create powerful magnetic fields. You can trap anything between them and move things around, whether it's a 10-ton rock or a giant tree that's been cut down, or a tip of a mountain that's been cut down that you want to move. You can pretty much do anything you want. So we're coming to the end of our 2-hour session here. Let's go through. I like that question, Michael. Were the giants ancient plants as well? Yes, that's a big one, because we would have had huge plants. I mean, you've seen the giant mushrooms, fossilized mushrooms that have been found that must have been growing under these large, 10-mile-high trees. If the giants were a mile tall, and the trees would have been, 10 miles tall, and who knows, maybe even taller. Felicity, do you have any evidence of terraforming? And good luck with your channel. Thank you, Felicity. Thanks very much. Terraforming, well, the evidence that I'm working on are really the clusters of the stone circles, and the sheer size of this construction. Like I said, it is by far the largest machine ever built. Nothing even comes close to the size of these 10 million circular stone structures connected to each other, covering pretty much large part of Southern Africa. And every now and then we discover even more, It's just spectacular. Sometimes I go to places and I least expect to find stone circles there, and bingo. I was at Great Zimbabwe now. We were going to explore this giant rock that is in line with the Acropolis of Great Zimbabwe, the hilltop fortress, Acropolis as it's called, and the great enclosure and the stone circles around it in the valley, which was right next to a river. At one stage there was a flowing river right between the two. And then in line with it, in the distant hill, about 2 kilometers away, there's this giant rock about 30 meters high. This monster, it actually looks in the shape, slightly the shape of what became known as the Zimbabwe birds. And I've been meaning to go and explore that for 10 years. And we went there a few days ago when we were on the Sacred Sites Adventure Tour with Dean Laprini. We went to explore that for the first time. and walked into these ancient cracks, these giant cracks that are like 1 meter, 1.5 meters wide in places, right through these giant rocks that you can see ceremonies being held there for thousands of years. Very sacred, very special place. There was pottery in there. We explored that. You'll see that on my video on my channel. I'll be featuring that as well. And I'll be going back to Zimbabwe to cover a lot more. So why did I lead to that? So science of terraforming. Yeah, so literally I digressed a bit there, but just the size of these structures is just huge. And then this cluster of stone circles, I've even forgotten about it because I hardly speak about it. It's on the other side of Johannesburg, on closer to Botswana. That's like 5 by 5 kilometers of non-stop connected stone circles. It's almost like a cross section of a human lung. In some of our presentations, I actually show it as what reminiscent of a human lung. It's the only thing I can connect it to. It makes no sense. Even in the field of stone circles, it is very different to all the stone circles. It is like a giant organism. Very mysterious. So, what was that used for? It boggles the mind. Lavina, have you experienced an effect on your physical body since you have walked and worked a lot in these energies? Absolutely. In fact, remember, I'm going to start winding this up, but one thing I'll be talking about in great detail and on my channel and in future episodes and documentaries is the healing aspect of the stone circles. Some different people experience different effects. Some people can't stand the energies once they go inside the stone circles, and they literally want to get out. Some almost immediately, and some within a short space of time. Other people love it. They go there, and they just want to sit there and absorb the energy. And we've experienced over 11 years, non-stop, recurring healing effects of people, from benign effects like, asthma. Well, that's not benign. Things like asthma or high blood pressure or skin problems and et cetera, or heart problems, to cancer, to curing cancer. On this very journey, we actually did a healing session on one of the guys on our journey from Switzerland at the very special Ascension Cave, one of Dean Leprini's spectacular discoveries and sacred sites near Cape Town, in Noordhoek. And that was used in ancient times as a healing and a birthing chamber. And many shamanic visions and channelings have been done there to determine how that site was used. And we actually performed a shamanic ritual, a healing ritual, the way it was shown to Dean Leprini, our shaman, how they used that. And we replicated that to cure one of our friends of quite a bad case of what did you call it? Histaminic reaction to wine, and really nasty reaction, and literally had a profound effect on him. So it's not just the stone circles, but many ancient sacred sites that have these powerful energetic effects on us, on our bodies. If we know what to do and how to use them, we can certainly put them to good use. And I'll be doing healing journeys to the stone circles. So watch this space, watch my website. Just purely healing journeys, going out and spending a few hours in the stone circles every day and healing. And we have information of what to do, how to use them to perform that healing effect. Celine, thanks for this fascinating session. Interesting mention, Angkor Wat. Yesterday, I came across a doc mentioning that below is sandstone. Below its sandstone is laterite, which a porous rock formed by the leaching of minerals from parent rock. One theory is that so that the temple can be constructed quickly, as they're easier to carve or become infill. Okay. While there's no mention of fossils in this doc, it got me wondering if you have connected your findings with fossils research in Asia. No, not in Asia. I have not been to Asia and done this research there, but I know already that there will be connections, because you pretty much see this wherever you go. The fossil episode and the fossil mystery is just literally exploding right now. And we got to thank people like Roger Spur that started Mud Fossil University channel on YouTube. If you haven't watched it yet, please go there and watch his videos. Roger can get a little carried away and sometimes wears his heart on his sleeve about mainstream academia, and I can understand why. But he's a brilliant mind, and he's truly done his homework and his research. And he also has done the work. He's got several of his fossils actually DNA scanned and studied and extracted DNA and shown that these were living creatures and are indeed organic fossils from real reputable laboratories that did DNA scans and DNA extraction for him. So yeah, so the fossil chapter is just really exploding now, and that I believe is going to be a huge discussion around the world and also on my channel, because I have so many bloody fossils here. It boggles the mind. It is so exciting. It's literally like being a kid in a candy store. Wherever you go around me here up the mountains, it's literally, if you know what you're looking for and how to look and where to look, it's literally like walking into a candy store and wondering which candy you're going to pick up today. So I think on that note, I'm going to finish here today. Thank you very much for joining me. Please go out there and spread the message, spread the word, and watch my website, sign up for my upcoming channel, and spread the message. Get people to sign up to my newsletter as well. The newsletter is obviously something that goes out to everybody, and I'll be promoting the new subscription channel very actively there through the newsletter. And a lot of work to be done here. I've got a lot of work to do to finish the Stone Circle Museum. Excuse me, a Stone Circle Museum, and looking forward to the next year and this year of 2019. Exciting things to come, and check out the upcoming journeys with my shaman friend John Paul from Australia, coming up in October. Then the Stone Circle Research Program in November, and then the journey with Sam Osmanagic in January 2020, and then the Stone Circle Sacred Sites Adventure Tour with Dean Raprini in March 2020. So until next time, thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to catching up with you again. Go out there, spread the word, and go and share your knowledge and information with everyone, because you know by now, once they've heard it, they cannot unhear it. Bye for now.